So what happens if deterrence fails? What does a modern nuclear war actually look like? Now, this isn't science fiction. What you're about to hear is a research scenario pieced together from what we know about the terrifyingly fast, automated, and, well, fragile system that holds the fate of the entire world in its balance.
Okay, let's just dive right in. 6 minutes. That's it. From the moment the first warning of an enemy launch is confirmed, the President of the United States has just 6 minutes to decide whether or not to unleash Armageddon in response. 6 minutes. To decide the fate of all humanity.
So you have to be asking, how can anyone possibly make a decision that immense at that kind of speed? Well, the answer lies in a Cold War policy that is, believe it or not, still very much active today.
That policy is called Launch on Warning, and it's brutally simple. The idea is that the U.S. will not wait to absorb a first strike. We will launch our counterattack before the first enemy missile even hits. And this whole four-step process, it happens in a crazy flurry of automated alerts and rushed phone calls, all leading to one person making one choice in less time than it takes to make a cup of coffee.
Now, this entire 6-minute clock is only possible because of a concept that, frankly, shocks most people when they first hear it: sole presidential authority. The power to literally end the world is concentrated in one person, and the justification? It's all about speed. In a full-scale nuclear exchange, there's just no time for a debate or a committee vote or anything like that.
And look, if you think that sounds kind of insane, you're in good company. President Ronald Reagan himself, a man who commanded this very system, he called the whole 6-minute window irrational. He actually questioned how anyone could make such a world-ending decision based on just a blip on a screen.
So how fragile is this system really? This question is at the center of an incredibly intense debate among experts. Is it a necessary evil, a deterrent that keeps us safe, or is it a catastrophic accident just waiting to happen?
To explore that, author Annie Jacobsen lays out one very plausible scenario in her work. It starts small: a limited attack from a country like North Korea. The U.S. detects it, that launch on warning clock starts ticking, and the choice of how to respond, well, that changes everything.
And this is where we see a critical disagreement among people who study this stuff for a living. In Jacobsen's scenario, the U.S. launches its land-based ICBMs. Problem is, to get to North Korea, they have to fly over Russia. Russia's systems see them coming, can't be 100% sure they aren't the real target, and they launch everything. But a lot of defense experts push back on this. They argue the U.S. would almost certainly use closer, stealthier submarines to avoid Russian airspace for this very reason. They also point out that Russia's official policy has been to ride out a smaller attack, not to panic launch their entire arsenal. It just shows you how much uncertainty is baked right into the system.
Right. This is the question everyone asks. I mean, we've all seen the movies. Surely we have some kind of missile shield that can just knock these things out of the sky, right?
Well, the grim reality is right there in the numbers. For a large-scale attack, let's say from Russia, they have roughly 1,670 deployed warheads ready to go. To stop them, the U.S. has just 44 ground-based interceptors. 44! And in testing, their success rate is only about 50%. So it's not really a shield. It's more like trying to hit a bullet with another bullet, traveling at 14,000 miles per hour, 500 miles up in space.
Once those missiles are flying and the counter-launches begin, the world just unravels. According to one former commander of Strategic Command, from the start of the conflict to the end of civilization as we know it is about 72 minutes.
The journey for just one of these intercontinental ballistic missiles takes about 30 minutes. It starts with a 5-minute boost phase, where our satellites can track its hot rocket exhaust. Then it goes into a silent 20-minute coast through the blackness of space. And finally, there's a terminal phase of just over 100 seconds as the warhead screams back to Earth.
And then, impact. A flash of light brighter than 1,000 suns. The air itself ignites, superheating to 180 million degrees Fahrenheit. A fireball, 19 football fields wide, just expands, incinerating an entire city in seconds. Nothing is left. Next comes the blast wave. It's a silent wall of wind, moving faster than sound, just leveling steel and concrete for miles, leaving behind a wasteland of rubble 30 feet deep.
And then the sky falls.
Over 1,000 Russian warheads detonate across the United States. Each one ignites a megafire, a firestorm 100 square miles in size. It is, quite simply, a world on fire.
For the very few who might survive that initial 72 minutes, the horror is really just beginning. What comes next is a long, slow, global catastrophe.
So what does next mean? It means this: 5 billion. Modern climate models predict the nuclear winter that would follow. Well, it would trigger a global famine, leading to the starvation of an estimated 5 billion people.
You know, the former Soviet premier Nikita Khrushchev may have said it best. After a nuclear war, the survivors would envy the dead.
So how does that happen? Those 1,000-plus megafires would send 300 billion pounds of soot and smoke high into the atmosphere, completely blocking the sun. This triggers what scientists call a nuclear little ice age. Global temperatures would plummet, freezing major ports and collapsing ocean ecosystems. Of course, global agriculture fails completely, and then, when the sun finally returns, maybe years later, a depleted ozone layer would make its rays basically toxic. This whole scenario is just beyond terrifying. But the single most important takeaway from all of this is that it isn't some unstoppable force of nature. It's a problem that we created.
Nuclear war isn't an asteroid or an earthquake. It is a system. It's a system of policies and treaties and machines built by people. And if it was built by people, it can be changed by people. And you know what? We've done it before. Back in 1983, a TV movie called The Day After showed 100 million Americans the horror of nuclear war. And one of those viewers was President Reagan. He wrote in his diary that the film left him greatly depressed. That shared fear is part of what helped bring him and the Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev to the table, and it led to massive reductions in nuclear stockpiles, from a terrifying peak of 70,000 warheads down to around 12,500 today. Their summit produced this landmark statement. It was this incredible moment of shared humanity, acknowledging a really simple truth: a nuclear war cannot be won, and it must never, ever be fought. And that brings us to the final crucial question we have to ask ourselves. This apocalyptic threat, it isn't a law of physics, it's a machine that we built. So if we had the power to build it, don't we also have the power and maybe the responsibility to unbuild it?